because somebody's always going to be displeased, right? Somebody's always going to be upset at what you say, no matter what it is. When I knock the modern wrestling and the modern wrestlers get their feelings hurt, some people like it and some people hate it. When I like the modern wrestling, well, then the same people that hate the modern wrestling get mad at me because I like the modern wrestling, and vice versa. You see where I'm going with this? So I think it was generous, if nothing else, of Tony Khan to do a show this past Friday, October the 1st, on the Friday night edition of Rampage on AEW on TNT. It was nice of him to do a program where I could piss off everybody in the same review, because this thing, there were some things that I thought were some of the best things that have been done on the program. And then they ended up in the worst thing that's ever been done on the program. Basically, what I'm trying to say, Bryan, is that everybody's going to be alternately pleased or displeased, as the case may be with this review, because depending on what you're looking at for pleasure, I'm going to give you a little something, and depending on what you're looking at to be pissed off, I'm going to give you a little something too. Either way. Have we got everybody covered, Bryan?
I don't know if anyone's covered, but I think we're prepared.
Oh, God, I should have been covered for some of this. Anyway, it's Friday night. It's 10 o'clock, so they're going to lead with their marquee match, and we've talked about that's not a stupid thing to do. At that late, you're starting to fight sleep after that. And right out of the gate, there's Bryan Danielson. He's coming to the ring. The yes chants. The people are going crazy. He's over. They love the music. The Flight of the Bumblebee, as you so famously titled it. They love that stuff, right? And then, I'm not even going to make mention of the first voice you hear is excrement, sounding like he's voicing over a VHS tape in his basement. But still, it looks like they got a big crowd. Again, we're at a big-time show here. And then here comes the Hardley Boys and Brandon Cutlet. And again, I will even accept your point that you mentioned last week or whatever. Even if your cup of tea is not the Cucamonga Kids, it wouldn't be so offensive if it was just Matt and Nick Hardley without Brandon Cutlet. Because the face shield, why is he wearing the face shield? Originally, he had a broken nose or something. It's been 6 months ago. He's worn this longer than Andy Kaufman wore the neck brace, and Kaufman was over. But anyway, they come out. It just tells you these guys are not serious when they're bringing a goofy guy who never does anything other than goofy shit. Yes, you can have the goofy, annoying second or manager or stooge or whatever if he actually does shit at some point to get heat, or there's a reason, a purpose for his existence there in this world. But it's a clown show. So already I was thinking, okay, Bryan Danielson had a wonderful match with old Twinkle Toes, but does he have it in him to keep this guy serious and to avoid being an illogical gymnastics show? They've already got one of the stooges at ringside. The corpse referee is refereeing it. Can Bryan Danielson become the Merlin the Magician second time in a row? The answer was yes. He did it. With a couple of exceptions, which we will notate as we go through the details. Bryan Danielson got a serious pro wrestling match out of one of the Hardley Boys. Wait a minute, hold on here.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. I mean, that's not for you.
Oh.
I mean, obviously, at this point, we know that a lot of these guys, when they get in the ring with the Punks and the Danielsons, at least then, even they, with their self-inflated opinions of themselves know that they're in with someone that needs to be leading this thing, and they've talked it out ahead of time, or they worked it out, or whatever, to where things make sense, and they don't feel not only the need, but also feel the ability to just, let's put this cool thing that we thought of in where, fucking knock it off comes in with the computer laptop or whatever. So, and it's all about, if you've got a singer that's had no professional training, they might have a natural gift of their voice, but they could be all over the place, and they don't know how to, the notes and how to carry the tune, and they have natural talent that needs to be shaped. But if left to their own devices, they're all over the place. Same with almost any endeavor where you can have a natural innate talent for something, but until somebody explains to you how to apply it, you can be all over the page. Bryan Danielson made that goofy little backflip through the ropes and off the apron that Nick Jackson has been doing for 15 years actually make kind of sense for the first time, as opposed to being something he just did because it looked cute. There was still, obviously, Nick was doing his shit, but he didn't do as much of it, and when he did it, it made sense. And it was registered, and the people reacted, and they didn't bury the referee. They didn't fucking flaunt the rules, fight endlessly on the floor, do things that you wouldn't have done if it was a competition and you were trying to win. In most cases. I mean, I know the bar is way low these days, but still, he did it. When Danielson hit a dive early on at one point, while Jackson was distracted doing his goofy heel stuff and didn't see him coming, and then what'd he do? They didn't fight on the floor for 15 minutes. He grabbed the guy and threw him back in, because that's where he could actually beat him. Nick was selling for once in his life, not just going through the motions, but actually going down and selling. And Danielson was aggressive, but taking his time, because he didn't want to run off and leave the people, because they were already ready when the bell rang. The people wanted to see this match, so why run off and leave them when they're with it? Have you noticed that excrement will not shut up about anything that's ever happened in Japan, and has to draw some comparison to Japan with anything going on in his own company?
When it's not that, he's usually talking about a match he had with someone 20 years ago.
Yeah, and if he can get, and it was in Japan at the same time, that's a double fucking whammy for him. Danielson obviously was in control of most of this in the first segment, as he should have been, and he's the babyface. But his shit is different from most of the modern style guys in that he can work modern style, but he doesn't overlook the little shit that looks good, that makes the other shit mean something. When he controls the whole body, he works holds. He's not just sitting there waiting for the next run and jump spot. And then a classic babyface goes for a fucking trademark move and misses, and they start the heat. He moved, or Jackson moved on the drop kick in the corner. And so, boom, down he goes, and he starts getting heat on him. And then Matt interfered, right? And they go to the break with the babyface in jeopardy. And when they come back, he's got the heat going. And I guess at this point, you can tell old Nicky boy, Balding Buck, as we used to call him, his bumps and his spots and his running is there because that's, he trained on a trampoline. That's the flavor of stuff in wrestling that he can do. There's still the visual, and that there's not only no muscular definition, but also he's 175 pounds. Somebody said, well, Bobby Eaton didn't have muscular definition. Well, he was also 225 most of the time, and if he hit you, if you didn't go down, you'd do a lot of funny things standing up. But overlooking the visual, Nick's bumps and his spots are there, but his punches, kicks, strikes are often meh. Did you pick up on that?
Well, they're not really known for their punches or strikes, but I've been saying for a long time that the Bucks are not my favorite, but if there was one Buck that I thought had something, it was him.
One Buck.
The other one is like fucking sober Janetti. This guy actually can do some shit, and I've seen some people make the Shawn Michaels comparison. I'm happy they are, because it's a lot more apropos than Bobby Eaton. And God. I think there is a comparison in terms of what they were to their time between Shawn Michaels and him. And for the record, we should point out correctly, everyone now reevaluates things the way I evaluated them at the time, that Bret Hart was much better. So I think it works.
Well, that's because it's like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, the debate is sort of like the debate between Smoky Mountain Wrestling and ECW. At the time, people were enamored of the flashier object, but over time, people have said, that thing didn't age well, whereas the other one did. Anyway, when Bryan started to make his comeback, Danielson does the kicks to the chest when the guy's on his knees and people go yes and etc. And when Danielson does it, he puts the whole body in it and he has the drawback and boom. Well, he was letting Nick kick him. I hate the letting the other guy do something spot.
Well, you know what?
Go ahead.
I'm just going to say, because I want to remember to say this, I had the same reaction here and I've had it at least 2 or 3 times in the last couple episodes. It's happening too much. In the middle of the match or towards the end of the match, everything just stops, and it's either they hit each other or like this. The one guy lets the other guy hit him over and over again. If it happens all the time, it means nothing, and it's happening all the fucking time. And again, in the middle of the match, all of a sudden it slows down to a pace. I hate it. It's the fucking worst.
Well, and let me fine-tune what you might hate, because the guys, especially the guys were hit me, now I'll hit you, hit me, now I'll hit you. That's bullshit. We've said that. And also, I mentioned Nick's kicks and strikes. If they had looked like Bryan's here, there would have been something to this. And basically, this was Bryan Danielson's version of hulking up here, where Lawler takes 3 or 4 shots to the fucking head and drops a strap, or Hogan in his shitty way turned away from the guy's punches and just shook his fist, or any other babyface bows up, right? However, this went too long. There was too many kicks. And the ones at the start especially were a little meh. I liked the way that Danielson reacted to this facially. And the way that you started seeing him, if it had been 4 kicks, and maybe on the 5th one he stood up and said, I've had all I can stand, I can't stand no more. But I didn't count, but there was a number of them. And they didn't look good. I would have bought this as Danielson's babyface Hulk up if it had. I think maybe he was waiting on a few that might register, because a few of them were just bleh, bleh. But anyway, you could have a little bit of everything here. The trading spot, I'm going to let you hit me. Now you're going to let me hit you. That's always bullshit. You can do a 1-2, 1-2 in the middle of the ring, make it look like a Rocky movie without asking the other guy to hit you. With this, he was on his knees. If Jackson had come in with bam, bam, and you could see him bow up after that, come on, motherfucker, and then the big one, 4 or 5, like I said, and then him come up and start his comeback, you would have had something. But they weren't impressive, and it went on too long to where you go, all right, what the fuck, right? And to be honest, at that point, it was like, if this guy can kick the other guy 6, 8 times in the chest and not hurt him, how's he been able to hold on this long? Anyway, however, having said that, Danielson bows up and spits in fucking old Nick's face and starts wailing on him and makes a comeback. And once the comeback got going, I mean, Danielson's precision is amazing, because he's like watching a champion billiards player where they're going to sink the ball because they're a pro, they should. But the really good ones position the cue ball for the next fucking move, right? Next fucking shot. In this case, just his precision, the way he lands, everything's safe, boom, boom, boom. And then he threw some real working kicks to the chest to show old Nick what they look like. And that registered. Do you see the difference when Danielson does it? He moves his hands, he draws back, you can see him putting everything in it, and he lands firmly in safe places. It's not just like kids pretend kicking. Does that make any sense?
It does, and to go back to Shawn Michaels, I remember why I was never a big fan of his super kick, at least in the 90s, because I had seen Chris Adams do it. So I was like, this is a slow motion joke that looks like it's barely connecting. It got better as years went on.
He got more practice at it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so old Nicky boy, he goes, they're going back and forth, and he goes for a flipping splash off the top rope where Danielson's going to raise his knees. But Nick missed the knees anyway and came down on the tops of his feet. But Danielson saved it because apparently he was going to raise the knees, boom, and then go into the label lock, and that's what he did. He just went right into the label lock. And Jackson gets a rope break. Now, you're seeing one of the Hardley boys get a pop from the crowd for getting a rope break. They were like, oh. He's actually being forced to work and to have a wrestling match. They went out on the apron. Danielson's giving him the kicks. He drops down and Danielson kicks the fucking post, which is a good spot that they went back to later on when, that his leg was still damaged. I don't know why that Bryan Danielson decided to let anybody give him a German suplex on the apron after he's had concussion issues, but nevertheless, they did it all right. They're having a good match. As I said, I'm going to pick out a few things. Here's one of the other ones. Did you see when Danielson was on the floor and Nick's in the ring and he runs and jumps to the top and then does the flipping dive off the top while Danielson's getting up? He kind of hit him. It was acceptable the first time because he came from so far in the air and oh shit. But then they replayed it immediately in slow motion, and you could clearly see that he missed and that Bryan was attempting to grab him, right? So I don't know why they replayed that, because it was an impressive jump. It was just a phony landing. But then quickly, Nick throws Bryan back in the ring and goes for the sharpshooter on the injured leg. So the match made sense. A good spot where Danielson again was on the floor. Nick runs down the apron, goes to kick Danielson. Bryan moves and he kicked Cutlet right in the face, got rid of him. And then Danielson grabbed Nick in a German suplex on the floor, boom, and dropped him, and then threw him back in the ring and nailed his brother Pie Face. And they go back and forth. And Danielson gets the cattle mutilation, which I guess, and they were allegedly not allowed to call that cattle mutilation in the WWF. Is this what I heard?
That's what I heard.
So they were afraid PETA would be upset. Anyway, the tap out from the cattle mutilation, which was the perfect finish, not only because, yes, Bryan Danielson should have won this match, but also because it was, obviously, if you're not even a Hardley Boys hater, you would know that Nick Jackson should not defeat Bryan Danielson when Danielson's having a program with his stablemate, the champion, Old Twinkle Toes. So, perfect finish. The match made sense. It was good work. They didn't bury the referee. And old Rick Knox, he has no ability to take care of himself. He just stands and waves his arms. So it's up to the wrestlers, and they didn't bury him. And it was the best match that I've ever seen either one of the Hardley Boys have. So, I know that's going to make people upset that I've praised one of the little dwarfs, but I have to, or I'm not being honest. But whose fault was it that it was good? Bryan Danielson. Your thoughts?
I've always been a lot more lenient of Nick Jackson than you. But with that said, I don't know why. I just didn't like this match. It didn't connect with me. It didn't connect with me. It didn't.
Wait a minute, you're the one who said, I like the Bucks and Omega and Page. I
thought that match was better than this match. That match was better than this match, I think.
Oh, Christ.
I didn't really get into it. The one spot I did like was when he kicked Cutler in the face. I thought that was a fucking nice spot. But I was looking forward to this match, whatever reason. It could have been because of what time it airs. It could have been whatever. I couldn't get into the match. Nothing against either guy here. I couldn't get into it.
I was waiting to see when that Nick was going to do cartwheels and cheerleading gymnastics, or they were going to do something stupid, or they were going to bury the referee, or it wasn't going to make sense. And I didn't see any of that. So that's why because I think that is, I probably think back, is the first time I've ever seen one of the Hardy Boys involved in anything that didn't have any of that.
And at least with the facial hair, he just looks like some scuzzy dirtbag as opposed to a little kid. So he's got that going for him. And I go back.
He looks like a little dirtbag.
And I go back to what I was saying the last few weeks. If it was Omega and Cole and the Bucks and even Don Fallis, I could deal with that as long as I don't get too silly. As soon as you add Nakazawa and Cutlet, that's pure comedy. The Good Brothers, that's go-away heat comedy. That's even the worst kind of comedy in wrestling. So I think if it was just those five, I could deal with it because they'll do something interesting. It'll be better than Cody. But I don't know. I don't like all the comedy shit.
But we can't leave without mentioning the one thing that Danielson is not able to do with these people, apparently, is prevent the plethora and infestation of afterbirths. Because immediately when the match is over with, all the heels come out, all the baby faces come out, and they get in a really sloppy, phony fight because these guys have not ever... How can I say this? They've done a bunch of this shit on the indies, but they've never done these show-closing brawls or big schmozzes in the ring in the territory days when it had to mean something, and you'd get your ass blistered if it didn't, or if your shit didn't look good or whatever. They think it's just to fill up the ring and have a lot of motion going on. If you watch any part of any of these big multi-man in-ring fights that AEW does, invariably, everybody just, two guys will lock up with each other, either down on the ground or standing up, and they'll just windmill punches at each other's shoulders, or same thing for weak kicks that go nowhere, or it's just motion, but none of the stuff individually looks worth a shit. Even when the guys can work, it's just all blah, blah, blah. And then when they get a spotlight, then their move might look okay. But basically, they got in a phony fight. And then Jungle Boy gets Adam Cole in the snare trap. And Danielson is daring Twinkle Toes to get back in the ring. And, of course, Twinkle Toes reacts in a phony comedic way. And runs into the ring, and Danielson gets him in the LeBell Lock. And both Twinkle Toes and Adam Cole tap at the same time to Jungle Boy and Danielson. I see where they were going, but it was too soon for Adam Cole to be put in that position. He hadn't been there 3 weeks.
I agree.
It was a cute spot. Oh, and they'll both tap. And see, Jungle Boy's deal was with Cole, whereas Danielson's deal is with Twinkle Toes. So when they both, that's cute. And if Cole had been there for 6 months, that'd also been cute. But he hadn't been there for 3 weeks, and he's tapping out to fucking Jungle Boy, and in a secondary position to the champion, tapping out to his number one contender. So you just had Adam Cole tap out, whether it counts or not, as a secondary piece of business to something else. The fuck?
And we've talked about Adam Page and how to slot him back in. If it was him instead of Luchasaurus there, it would work. Like, he'd be in this mix with these people. These exact people, actually.
There you go. But, and anything to get the dinosaur out of there. But But anyway, yes, it was too soon for Cole. They could have enticed Olivier back into the ring in some other fashion than immobilizing and tapping out Adam Cole when he hadn't been in the company for 3 weeks, is all I'm saying. But that's still the first 20 minutes of the show, and my God, be thankful for small favors that the end there that didn't have more wrong with it, and one of the Harley Boys had a good match, so I have to give it a thumbs up. I cannot lie or be dishonest.
How much is Tony Khan paying you, you shill?
Not as much as the Cult of Cornette are paying me. And I have to be honest to them. I have to be honest for my public, for the people.
You have to be honest, and we have to be honest about Nick Jackson's look. Like I said, he doesn't look like a teenage punk anymore. Looks more like a scuzzy dirtbag. And his hair even looks better. It makes me wonder if he's been using Keeps.
We know they all listen to the program. And whereas we called him Balding Buck, it looks like he may not have reversed that trend, but he's definitely slowed it down. And I think maybe that could be the secret. Maybe we'll find out. If you're in an AEW locker room, folks, look into Nick Hardley's bag and see if he has a big container of Keeps in there. And then we'll know, because, folks, if you want a simple, stress-free way to keep your hair, then you don't want to go out to a doctor's office. You don't want to leave your home. You want convenient virtual doctor consultations, medications delivered straight to your door. You want to go to Keeps.com, KEEPS.com. Because as we've said so many times, they've got low-cost treatments starting at just $10 a month, generic versions of all the major hair loss products, discreet packaging, proven results. They've got more 5-star reviews than any of their competitors. And folks, if you're ready to take action and prevent hair loss, and we'll talk more about hair loss in a minute on the rest of this program, because they instigated hair loss. If you're not wanting to get your head shaved, but you're wanting to keep your hair, go to Keeps.com/JCE to get your first month of treatment for free. That's Keeps.com/JCE, your first month's treatment for free. Start right now. Treatment can take 4 to 6 months to see results, so act fast. By next summer, my God, you'll look like Pampiro Firpo.
That's right, Keeps.com. Keeps/JCE.
Don't slash me.
Well, let's slash the rest of this show. What was next on Rampage?
All righty. Well, apparently now Ricky Starks is rich. He's a millionaire. Did you see this?
I was going to say,
James Bond house.
I know Tony pays them well, but I had no idea how well he was paying them. Wow, good job, Ricky Starks. Who's your business manager? I'd like to know.
He had the big house. He had the big car. And he was talking about Brian Cage. And it was good. It was well shot.
Yeah, it was really good.
But I don't know how he got rich when everybody saw him, a year and a half ago, he's wrestling for the NWA.
You know what I did like? A small touch? Instead of just all of a sudden, here's some video, we don't understand how he got the money to film this, let alone to live this phony lifestyle. They had Hobbs and Hook introduce. Well, Hook stood there.
Yeah.
They had Hobbs and Hook introduce it. So then it makes a little bit of sense because you know it's coming from Team Taz.
Yes.
I like that.
That was a good point. You got a good point there, Brian, but if you comb your hair right, nobody will notice it. Anyway, so then they had a sit-down interview, brief, but a sit-down with CM Punk. So again, we've got another big name on the program. He put Hobbs over, as he should have. He wants the best competition in AEW. He said the perfect things that he would say if he's really in this position, and he said them realistically. He wants the competition. He wants to try himself. It wasn't a long deal, but it was, to get his face on the show. Very, very good piece there. And I mean, again, it's so simple. That's the same thing that I used to tell guys in any training program, seminar, wrestling school, whatever, or at any promotion, even in MLW a couple years ago. I watched guys do a promo and let me ask you this. If this all was really happening and everything was legitimate, what would you say? And generally, those things were different than what they'd been saying. But his aren't. You can tell you, and the way that he talks, wrestling doesn't even have to be, in somebody's mind, either a work or legitimate, either one. It fits both. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
He skirts the things that the words that he shouldn't use and phrases it so you're not insulted either way. Speaking of being insulted either way, why did they do that? A 3-way, no disqualification match between Jane Cargill, Nyla Rose, and poor, beleaguered Thunder Rosa. What did you think about this contest, Brian?
I thought, fuck this match. Thunder Rosa is so good and so talented. She looks like a wrestler. Quite frankly, if a mark hit the ring, she's choking the fucking mark out. She's tough. She can do a good promo. She has good matches. I hate her being used like this, and then I really hate the fucking finish. That's all I think about this. She's so good. She's so fucking good. Why are they... forget it.
Between Jane Cargill's green body language and the ridiculously obvious choreography necessary to do a 3-way match to begin with, this blew chunks from the start. And Rosa was trying. They went to the break almost immediately, but when they came back, there was a trash can in the ring, and Thunder Rosa's drop kicking it into Jane Cargill, and there was more 3-way bullshit. And the first 20 minutes were so major league on this program, and now they follow it up with a girls' garbage match with the kendo sticks and the garbage can and the fucking table. And then I got as far as Thunder Rosa powerbombing Nyla Rose off the apron through a table to the floor, and I said, fuck it, I'm done with this. So I don't know what else happened. I don't care. But again, if the girls are powerbombing each other off aprons through tables and using chairs and kendo sticks and blah, 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 why do I give a fuck when the guys do it?
Jade went over.
Oh, good Lord. Who'd she beat?
I believe Thunder Rosa, but actually don't quote me on that because I started getting into the 30-second fast-forward groove.
Well, anyway, Malachi Black was in the spooky stairway. He means his promos, and he's very well-spoken. And, we've said there's issues with some of the mind games in the matches, but still, they've certainly done a better job of introducing him than they did old Bluto a while back. And then we go from a guy who, might be a major league talent to Matt Hardy and Jack Evans doing comedy about and our little dog pockets about the main event on TV. And suddenly we're at bad cable access television. If you didn't know that Matt Hardy had been a star and a major name in the business, if you just came into this in a vacuum, you wouldn't be able to tell he's a name by the people he's associated with. Evans looks like what Evans looks like, and then there's the idiot on the other side of the split screen that didn't even realize, supposedly, that he was in a match for his hair. So on the same program, you've got CM Punk and Bryan Danielson. You've got cable access wrestling. And it was a hair versus hair match. Brian, who won?
I didn't watch the match, for the record. I gave up on the show and I didn't see any of it. But I saw a picture of Jack Evans with part of his head shaved, so I assume he lost the match.
Well, basically I just wrote down a few comments. The only reason that I can think of to have this match is that they found out Jack Evans had lice or some other kind of parasite infestation that needs to be exterminated, so they decided to shave his head and do it on television. But guys, this is still national TV before 11 p.m. There's no reason to just waste 15 minutes of it. They started the show with a former WWE champion, and they finished it with guys who before AEW went on the air were job guys on outlaw shows. And they were doing phony wrestling and bad comedy. And this is the biggest problem they've got with growing their audience. Nobody who wants to watch a professional looking Major League Wrestling promotion on television would want to watch this clownishness in appealing or trying to appeal. And we've already seen their original audience. They love Danielson. They love Cole. They love fucking Punk. They love all these people. They're not going to run away if they don't see My Little Dog Pockets in the Hardy family office. But some other people that might not want to watch this program because they've tuned in and seen JoJo the dog-faced boy and all the amateur bullshit and the guys with Sharpie marks on their chests and miscellaneous masked people, to where those people might have thought, well, this is a fucking amateur hour. I ain't going to watch this. But now there's Punk, there's Danielson. Maybe it's changed. So they watch Punk and Danielson. Wow, it's changed. And then they see this and they go, no, it hasn't changed. Nobody would have set the seats on fire in that building if My Little Dog Pockets and Jack Evans had not wrestled a hair versus hair match. But boy, FTR or Santana and Ortiz or any of their professional talent could have certainly had a 15-minute match and looked good and not run anybody off. So, and if they ever do a hair match again, they've already done one with job guys and goofs, and it wasn't serious. So it takes the edge off if they ever do it with top guys that matter. So they started in the penthouse and they finished firmly in the outhouse. That not even like Wednesday night's Dynamite where they bounce back again by the end. They ended on a low point.